module, we're going to talk about finding funding opportunities. So this is going to be something that you do first and foremost before you even start writing your proposal. One of the first steps of applying for a grant is understanding the mission and goals of the granting agency. And so you may or may not be applying to NIH, but I just put a link to the NIH mission statement for an example. So feel free to go to that link and read that. Whatever granting agency you're applying to is going to have a mission. And so it's really important to understand that mission before you get started, because that is what you're going to tailor your application to. The other link that I have on this slide is an acronym list for NIH. NIH in particular uses a lot of acronyms, and it's helpful, I think, to have this list handy in case you run across an acronym that you're not familiar with. So one of the most important factors to consider when applying for a grant is that your granting agency has to be convinced that funding your proposal will help the agency advance its mission. So this is, it's really important to make sure that you know what that mission is. All right, so this slide is going to be tailored for those of you who are applying for an NIH grant. It's important to understand, I think, the structure of NIH so that you know some of the terminology and understand how NIH works. So NIH is part of the executive branch of the US government. The director of NIH is an appointee of the President of the United States. One term that you might run across is the Center for Scientific Review, the CSR. And this is a branch of the NIH that's responsible for the receipt and referral of all applications and is responsible for 75% of the peer reviews, regardless of the particular institute or center they are assigned. So your proposal is going to need to go through the CSR first when it is received at NIH. And the CSR is what's going to decide which study section your proposal will be assigned to. So how to find funding opportunities. And again, this is tailored for NIH. Other granting institution or agencies are going to have probably slightly different terminology and acronyms for their funding opportunities. But for NIH, all grant applications must be submitted in response to a funding opportunity announcement, an FOA. So parent announcements sponsor research that's entirely investigator initiated. So usually most of the R01 applications that are submitted to NIH, most of them are parent announcements. They're submitted in response to a parent announcement. Program announcements, or PAs, are used by the NIH to communicate a particular interest in a research area. And so the NIH may want to fund, epilepsy research, for example. And so they will issue a program announcement, a PA. PAs are reviewed by a standing review panel, or study section, as it's called sometimes. PARs are reviewed by an institute, and PAS are supported by set-aside funds. So there's a difference between PARs and PAS that you won't really have to deal with. It's dealt with at NIH internally. Now, program announcements and parent announcements are different from requests for applications, an RFA. RFAs solicit research of a specific kind. And for RFAs, a review panel is specially convened. It's not a standing study section or review panel. It is a panel of experts in the field that centers around the request for applications. So it's really important to understand if you are responding to an RFA, you're going to be competing from a different pool of money than those responding to a parent announcement or PA. So just to put it all in a nutshell, PAs and PARs compete for the same pool of money as parent announcements. PASs are supported by set-aside funds, and RFAs are supported by set-aside funds. So that's the main funding opportunities and the distinction between them from NIH. So just to let you know, why should you care about the difference between RFAs and PAs? If your research idea fits well into an RFA, you have a really good chance of getting funded. However, if it's a stretch, if it's a square peg and round hole situation, the likelihood of success is low, and there's a good chance that the application will be sent back without review. So really read the RFA very carefully and talk to your program officer to decide if your idea fits well into the RFA before applying to an RFA. Okay, so now on to the nuts and bolts of submitting an application. So before you submit an application to NIH, you have to register with grants.gov and designate what's called an authorized organizational representative, an AOR. Sometimes this is called a signing official. This is the only person who can sign and submit applications for your organization. So there'll be one person in your organization that is responsible for this. So in addition to having an authorized organizational representative, you yourself as a principal investigator have to register individually, even if you're not the contact PI. So if you're a co-investigator, a co-PI, you still have to register with grants.gov. You only have to do this once, and then the next time you submit an application, you don't have to do it again. Another term you'll hear a lot is ERA Commons. It's important to the application process and for monitoring your proposal after it's been submitted. So the ERA Commons is basically the portal that you'll use to interact and monitor the status of your proposal. And I provided a link to tutorials on this slide for ERA Commons. I found it to be fairly user-friendly, believe it or not. Okay, so here are some steps to start the process of getting yourself ready to submit a proposal. So first, familiarize yourself with the institution's missions and goals. If you're applying to NIH, make sure you understand the 3 different funding opportunity announcements, the parent announcements, the PAR/PAS, and the RFAs. You can sign up for either NIH's funding opportunity listserv or RSS feed, and that will give you the opportunity to review funding opportunities as they come available. And familiarize yourself with grants.gov and your institution's electronic submission system. Next, register with ERA Commons through your institution and familiarize yourself with the website. There's lots of tutorials available. And you'll need to, if you haven't done so already, download Adobe Reader and PDF creation software. Okay, so I created a quiz for this first module. And so here you can pause the video and take the quiz, and then we'll go over the answers. Okay, so assuming that you've paused the video and you've taken the quiz, number one, what is the Center for Scientific Review? This is a body that oversees the receipt and referral of all grant applications and oversees the review of most of them. Number two, what's the difference between a program announcement and a request for applications? The answer is PAs are more general, whereas RFAs are more specifically targeted to a particular research area. Number three, what's the difference between ERA Commons and grants.gov? Grants.gov is an online application portal for your proposal submission, whereas ERA Commons is the website where your submitted proposal will appear. And the last two questions are unique to you, so I encourage you to find the answers to those questions if you don't know them already. And that's the end of Module 1.1. See you next week.